Members of the commission, we are now live.
Good evening and welcome to the January 7th, 2026 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett, and I am the current chair for a few more minutes. I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Sandra Prather, Commissioner.
Mark Dominiani.
Zara Nasser.
Jeffrey Haynes.
This is Commissioner Doman.
Michael Galway.
Carly Bond.
Jonathan Kaplan.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff, and we do have Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff, with us as well.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. Our first order of business tonight is the annual election of the chair and the vice chair position. Do I have a nomination or nominations?
I can make one.
Certainly, please.
This is Commissioner Doman. I move that we nominate Commissioner Haynes for chair and Commissioner Galloway for vice chair.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Nasser, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Haynes, excuse me. And even though you won't need it tonight until the end, I hand you the gavel.
Thank you. And I gladly accept. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. All right, so the first order of business tonight will be the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they were advertised in the December 24th edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. If there's anyone here to testify for any of these cases, please give a speakerphone to the staff, and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports.
Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve.
Wait, one moment.
I'll back up.
Sorry. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of Case 1A at 9601 DeWitt Drive, Silver Spring? Case 1C at 1 South Street, Brookville? Case 1D at 10206 Montgomery Avenue, Kensington? Case 1E at 7107 Sycamore Avenue, Tacoma Park? Case 1F at 50 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park? Case 1G at 7103 Sycamore Avenue, Tacoma Park, and Case 1H at 507 Albany Avenue, Tacoma Park.
Now we go. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including the conditions recommended by staff, and that would be HOP number 1141192 at 9601 DeWitt Drive, Silver Spring, HOP number 1142727 at 1 South Street, Brookville, HOP number 1053565 revision at 10206 Montgomery Avenue, Kensington, HOP number 1143212 at 7107 Sycamore Avenue, Tacoma Park, HOP number 1143222 at 50 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park, HOP number 1143386 at 7103 Sycamore Avenue, Tacoma Park, and HOP number 1135035 revision at 507 Albany Avenue, Tacoma Park.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Dimignani. I second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? No. So the motion passes unanimously, and those cases are all approved. If you have any questions, you can speak with staff during regular business hours. We appreciate your preparing applications that are easily reviewed and approvable work permits. Thank you. Okay, moving on. The first case we're going to hear are in the preliminary consultations. This would be 3A at 23 Columbia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. We have a brief staff report. Again, this is a preliminary consultation at 23 Columbia Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It's located at the corner of Hickory and Columbia Avenue. It's constructed circa 1923 with a large 1940 addition. This is to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, Montgomery County Code Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So the applicant proposes to wrap the existing sills and aluminum flashing by removing the existing storm windows, installing the flashing over the sills to create a drip edge overhanging the existing siding, and then installing new storm windows. Just to familiarize yourself with the house, for those of you who weren't able to do it, if you look on the image on the lower right, that's the large three-story rear addition that was constructed in 1940. So there are a number of ganged windows, which is part of the reason that we're here for this preliminary consultation. You'll note that the sills were all cut at even with the wall when the aluminum siding was installed, so the sliding was installed flush. There are certain points where there are gaps between the sill and the siding, and there's evidence of water infiltration. There have been some piecemeal attempts at fixing it by earlier property owners as a second-story window. You see flashing installed over. The flashing does not go as deep into the window pocket as what the applicant is currently proposing, but we don't know how well this is held up either. So staff finds that the window sills were cut to remove the overhang when the aluminum siding was installed. Sliding is flush. There are areas on the interior of the house that show water is infiltrating the gap between the truncated sill and the aluminum siding. The recommended course of action would be to remove the aluminum siding, restore the sills, and repair the siding below, which is admittedly a much, much larger job than what the applicant is proposing. So staff finds that the proposed solution is likely to resolve the water infiltration issue, which is consistent with 24A8B3. Staff finds that the proposal will not substantially alter the exterior appearance of the house, per 24A8B2, and the proposed work would be reversible without substantially damaging the historic fabric, per Standard 10. The sills will require restoration at a future date whenever the aluminum siding is removed, regardless of what happens under the current intervention. So one of the items that staff addressed and when we're seeking HPC input is that the proposed treatment is going to be challenging at the window casings because you can't install the flashing all the way back to the window. This will create a horizontal joint, which is an area where there is the potential for more water infiltration, which is the problem that we're trying to solve. Additionally, staff is reluctant to fully endorse the solution because it will result in the installation of more incompatible material in the exterior of the house. So our questions for the commission this evening, first of all, do the commissioners find that the proposed solution is appropriate? Do the commissioners have any recommended treatment for the flashing at the mullions and casing? And are there other solutions that you may be aware of that the applicant should consider before returning for HOP? And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Maybe I missed it, but what exactly is staff's recommendation?
Well, so we find that it's the best solution that we can come up with despite our concerns about the areas of appropriateness. And this is a novel problem, and we have a novel solution proposed, and that's why our position was to recommend coming in for a preliminary consultation rather than a HOP as the first step.
But are you recommending removal of all the siding, or?
Well, I mean, that would be the best course of action, but that is not what the applicant is proposing. Some of that is to recognize that to really solve this issue would require a heroic effort, which is not what the applicant is proposing at this time.
But your proposal is to take off all the siding and redo the sills and?
That's not what we're recommending. I mean, we would like to see that happen at some future date, but that is not what the applicant is proposing, and that's not something that staff is prepared to recommend at this point, just because of the nature of the work required to undertake that.
Commissioner Doman, this is Rebecca Ballo for the record. I think what you're hearing, this is an unusual case, and this is an unusual staff presentation in that I think it's fair to say that we don't necessarily know what the best course of action may be. There are pros and cons to the different approaches available. So with this presentation and the staff report, we're giving you, the commissioners, kind of all the information that we have and talking through the pros and cons of each one of these options, but we don't necessarily have a strong feeling like this must be done or that should be done. It's much more of an open-handed question that we wanted to bring to you for discussion.
That helps.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Kaplan.
Commissioner Kaplan, is there a way to kind of relate what the finished product would look like? You know, how much new material would there be? Like if you're looking at Figure 4, is it just the sills that would be covered, or?
That's the proposal, is just to wrap the sills and wrap it far enough that there's a drip edge. We don't have a material specification provided with the submitted materials, but
okay.
You know, the applicant can sort of flesh some of that out for you as part of their presentation, or as a direct question to them.
Okay, thanks.
If Commissioner Bond.
Thank you. I don't know if this is a question for the applicant or for staff, but is the water infiltration occurring due to the lack of the drip edge or the open gap, or do you think it's a combination?
I think it's both. Where, I mean, even in instances where there isn't a large gap, you can see in the image on the left that there is space for water infiltration. At a previous job, going way back, a mechanic talked about water getting into sealed bearings, and his comment, which has stuck with me, is water is very small. So, I mean, it just takes a little tiny gap for water to infiltrate that space, particularly if it's not being shed off the sill or the joint where it's just collecting, and eventually it will work its way through. So we have large visible gaps, but there are other locations where we know that there's water infiltration occurring despite the lack of a large visible gap.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, there's no more questions for staff. We'll ask the applicant to come forward. Carl Pitt. Right here. And if you would have a seat and press the button till the light turns green and identify yourself for the record.
My name is Carl Pitt. I and my wife own 23 Columbia Avenue, Tacoma Park, for those of you who are following along at home and want to ask where all the real action is in the world.
You will have 7 minutes, I believe, to speak, or we can ask you questions.
I have slides if they can be displayed. Okay. So windowsill flashing, 23 Columbia. Next slide, please. So first thing I want to make clear is that the person I bought this house from gave me some direction, and then I found more. The house has historic, not just architectural significance. Judson King was the director of the National Popular Government League. Bertha King was known as Bertha Hale White and was the executive secretary of the Socialist Party. And the big addition that we all talk about, and the Maryland Historic Trust gave me a lot of trouble, was written up in the Washington Post when it was going to be built because he was moving his library to Tacoma Park to continue to advise on major national issues. The architectural recognition is much more minor. It was listed as a structure of merit in the original Tacoma Park Historic District, and it's now a contributing resource. Next slide. So rehabilitation overview. This house has been, well, Tacoma Park bad. There were efforts made prior to 2019. I've owned the house for 20 years. But in 2019, it tried to kill me a few times, so I had the electrical replaced, the plumbing, the HVAC, the mother-in-law suite that was not making code. I had converted to an ADU. I dropped it real 18 inches, 2 feet to actually do the work. There's an HBC case for that. And now I am in the process of renovating the windows. Most of the windows are original double hung 6/1s, wooden, some with weather stripping, some not. But let me tell you, 43 double hung windows, getting them reglazed and repainted is not cheap. I found a historic preservation person who's doing it for me, has done some of it, will do some more in the spring and summer. When we were doing this, we discovered that we had problems with aluminum storm windows and some storm doors. I did a hop for that. It turned out that we were able to put the wooden storm door back together. It's really nice. It's got a 12 light, 12 pane for those who speak that, glass insert in the wooden storm door. But while we were doing all this, we found this problem in the joints. We also found some problems with gutters and underground drains, some of which will be in my future plans. But these joints are bad. They don't appear to be supportable. I'll use the word capillary action. I'll use some other words. But it's just a really bad idea to have joints where the water is not being drained away and is being forced back against the house. I have what appears to be some settling and cracking issues, so I can't tell you exactly where the water goes. I do dread pulling it off. If you looked at that picture from the back, you saw that we had taken what was aluminum siding off the bottom portion and stuccoed it. There's already some cracking in that. Future plans including, and this is basically to tell you that I've got much more work to do, and this aluminum siding is way down my list. I've got painting and trim because I have to encapsulate lead. It's getting out of control. I've got stormwater management, landscaping, and hardscaping because all of the buried drains, no, not all of them. One of them I think we restored. Almost all of them are broken, and there are 6 downspouts. It's a lot, and it goes into clay, and if I don't fix them, the water will continue to pool around the foundation. So way down my list is the potential replacement of the aluminum siding, understanding that when I remove that siding, I'll have to redo the walls, and I may have significant cracking. We had some beam work that had to be done structurally when we had the house work done. One of the bathrooms, they had removed approximately 3/4 of the porcelain block that makes the side of the house. You could pretty much see through it. Next slide. So the proposed solution is that, they put aluminum siding on it in what I consider an odd way, flush mounted, caulked, and it's just asking for trouble. I could theoretically go and have massive amounts of caulk put on it, but that would, in this case, probably be a limited solution. I'm looking at the flashing as a more long-term solution so that I'm not forced to try to remove that siding in a hurry. The siding, the flashing has been applied. It won't, because of the color of the house, it's this white monstrosity. It won't stick out. Trust me, nobody will be able to see the flashing. And so what we're looking at doing is trying to make it so that the windows that I'm restoring, and by the way, most of them are in pretty good shape. We have some bowing, we have some other problems, but we're working it. Most of the panes are original. The glass is really cool. So we're looking at it, but among the problems I have in addition to those double hungs is that the storm windows in some cases have to be reseated. In some cases I need a new one, and that's covered in the hop. But it turns out that an entire floor worth of windows needs to be regasketed. So I'm looking to protect the outside of the house, considering the amount of work that was done on the inside. And all those photographs you saw are in Dan's report. And I think that's my last slide, so if there are questions, I'll take them.
Are there questions for the applicant? Commissioner Doman.
It's Commissioner Doman. Your priority put this aluminum siding way down at the low priority on here. So you would actually sometime consider taking off all the aluminum siding and bringing the house back to the normal original wood siding. Is that in your future sometime?
Well, let me answer two different questions, two different ways. I would like to, in the long run, remove the aluminum siding. I actually have additional research I'd like to do to try to figure out what the original outside of the house looks like. I have not had the time to go look up the photo morgue of I think it's the Daily Tennessean, who did an article on the occupant, and they did the article sometime, I think, in the 50s. Or maybe it was earlier, but there may be photographs which would allow me to, from a more historic standpoint, since this house is not all about being a 1920s Tacoma house. This is actually all about being the home of two of the most progressive politicians in at least local history. And so I'm more concerned about figuring out what the house looked like. I kept, believe it or not, I kept the receptacles in the floor of what was his library because I thought it was cool. So there are electrical receptacles in the floor of the very large room, which we use as a formal dining room and which he probably used as his library, as in the quote that, and I don't know if you have, go back 2 slides. Okay, so if you read that very detailed quote in there, it talks about the fact that it was to house the library and it was additional wing and all this. And by the way, I owe Dr. Charles Stevenson for these. I did not dig all of this up. So having said that, yes, I would like to remove the siding. No, I don't know exactly what I'd replace it with, although it would be certainly more historically appropriate and / architecturally appropriate than aluminum siding. However, the aluminum siding is protecting the house right now, and I'm loath to remove it without having enough money and time to do stuff. Right now, the windows, the storms are ready to fall off in some cases, and the windows are in need of reglaze, et cetera, and I'd like to finish that before I start the next project.
My other question, okay, so this is off into the future, but right now you have kind of like an immediate problem with the sill, and you want to do something. Right now, you're coming before us saying, can you do something to cover up these sills so that we don't get water leaking?
Correct.
Down the sill and in behind the aluminum siding. So that's what you're looking for right now.
Correct, and I have another staff analysis undergoing on gutters. That unfortunately, and if we go forward 2 slides, sorry, do this to you. No, sorry, go back 1. My bad. That when we look at the hardscaping, landscaping, and water management, I realized that as we look at the downspouts and everything, if I take the guttering goes the wrong way in certain cases because the house is settled. So if I redo the guttering, redo the drain pipes, I really need to handle those underground drains and make the water go somewhere. Non-trivial, considering, as it turns out, utilities and the Tacoma Park tree protection. So I've got a lot of things to do that are key, including that water. That water is more dangerous. I know it sounds funny, but the aluminum siding, yeah, it doesn't look good, but I've got hydrostatic water pressure problems, some of which were addressed, some of which haven't been addressed. But I'd be so much happier if I could get all the water away from the house, down the hill, make those drains work. You know, I've got 1 dry well, but I might, do some more dry well cisterns. So I'm admitting I need the flashing to maybe temporarily, temporary, maybe 10 years, to mitigate a water problem that I see is urgent. And then I've got some more stuff, including lead paint and the drainage that I also see as urgent. The aluminum siding is just not on my priority list.
Commissioner Burdett.
Thank you. You mentioned, I believe I heard you say that you had removed some windows and others needed to be reseated?
Okay, so let me go back. It's much more lengthy than that, and there is a report, there is stuff, Dan, you can make that available to them. So the quick answer is the storm windows are falling off. Most of the double-hung wooden windows are actually in pretty good shape, but need to be reglazed.
Can I ask you how often you open your windows?
I have not often opened them all that much. My wife really would like to be able to open the windows and have airflow. So
Have you looked at preformed sills such as Sure Sill or Geldwin cells?
okay, so first and
That's
foremost,
flashing, or some are sills, some are flashing.
the sill problem can't be addressed without addressing the aluminum siding, because again, it's butted. So if I touch that siding, I may have trouble getting it back. So yes, I will consider sill solutions, but at this point, I am trying to preserve windows, and then I will proceed down my space of water, et cetera. So I will definitely take any information about what I can do about siding and sills.
I mean, what I'm talking about are these are preformed sills that can lay over your existing condition.
Well, that's, okay, if
So
there's
that's
sills that
something-
basically function as flashing, then yeah,
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
interested, because really what I've discovered is that the water cascades in some cases, again, I think some of it's solvable by gutter and downspout correction. Sorry about that, but I'm fading in and out because of the placement. But after we get the water not cascading down the storms, then just making sure the water doesn't pool and intrude is my next phase. And anything that will work, I'm willing to consider. And the reason I was talking about the flashing was it's already been done and I see it and it's not intrusive. And from an engineering standpoint, I can see how it would work. Okay, so truth in advertising, my bachelor's is in chemical engineering. So flows, yes. Materials, not so much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, then we will discuss the project amongst ourselves and give you our thoughts. Is there any commissioners who'd like to kick off the conversation? Commissioner Burdett.
Can you pull up one of the photographs that shows the existing condition really closely? That one is good. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of paint, and then I don't know how much of it's lead-based, but probably a lot, okay, a lot of it. So you've got that issue to deal with. You definitely have to clean this whole area of any of the moss and growy stuff before you even start this, because if you don't, it's a lost cause. And you also have a lot of caulk there that is failing. And depending on the storms and how they're tied in, you may be able to pop out the storm, and that sounds easy, but I know it's not. But you can remove the storms and put a prefabricated sill or flashing material that would come down and cover what I'm seeing and just lip over the edge.
I think that's approximately what I'm proposing. And in some cases, the storms are firm, and in some cases, I need to reseat them.
Yeah, but that's,
If you go back to that picture of the ganged windows on the side, the sun window, okay. Yeah, that's not the right part, but there's one of those, the ganged windows you can't see. The building has tilted enough that those storms are not seated properly. And I may actually have to have somebody put a frame over top of the
Yeah.
window area in order to seat the storm, because
Yeah.
because the
Understood.
sashes can handle it and the storms can't. They can't
Underst-
handle the crook,
Yeah, understood. I think I mean, you've got a lot of work ahead of you. There's just no way to do what you want to do without really getting into these storms and possibly the windows. And again, you've got to first off, wash everything clean and then start taking the caulk off, the paint off, and all of that kind of stuff to get down to where you can actually do something. And then put on a sill cover that's going to cover what you've got right now that'll lip over that aluminum siding. That's what you're talking about. That's what you're going to have, is what you're going to have to do. And there are some products out there. And then when you get to the future date, you can, really do it. But if you're restoring windows now,
Yeah,
then,
so let me be clear. So when they're restoring them, they're removing the sashes, scraping the inside. They're not doing the outside work. I'm going to get a separate bid on the lead paint, and that's going to turn out to be
okay.
another joy. But what I'm trying to do is, rather than do this piecemeal, I'm trying to understand which things I need to do in which order, and this flashing becomes an issue that apparently the HPC wants to weigh in on, rather than, I know the lead paint, you guys say, just, do it properly. So we're working that. But one of the things I have on tap is to have the storm windows reseated, regasketed, a bunch of other things. So it's 40 windows need regasketing, 40 paints. It's
And
only
when
20.
you do that, you're dealing with the outside lead-based paint.
The gasketing doesn't have, the storm windows don't actually have lead paint on them. The lead paint is on the things, but I would like to have a plan to attack it that involves, for instance, let's say, removing the storm, then tackling the paint, and then restoring the storm. So this is all about order of process and making sure that I have people who are capable of handling it. It did not occur to me when I was just having the sashes done that I was going to get, which I do have, a lead booth in my garage. So there's a lead booth in my garage for handling the storm, for handling just the sashes, and we haven't gotten much beyond a survey of the storms, knowing which ones have gasketing problems, which, by the way, is one floor appears to have new gaskets, the next floor has old gaskets. So,
Have you looked at replacing the storms?
yes, I've thought about replacing the storms. I've gotten permission from HPC. It's in, I don't remember which one, to replace at least.
It was staff approved as
Okay.
one of the categories that you've delegated to us. So
Okay,
yes,
that's fine. Okay.
He's applied for a permit, it was approved.
Because from a time management and effort management, just replacing the storms and dealing with your flashing issue at that point makes a lot more sense, yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm here
Okay.
because I really didn't want to execute replacing storms without having the flashing decision, so that I can have the guy who does the storm do the I mean, it makes way too much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not allowed. Oh, sorry, did I say that?
Okay, I think I'm done for the moment, yeah.
Commissioner Nazar.
This is Commissioner Nasser. Can you hear me? It's obvious that you care about your property a lot, very passionate about it. So, and you have an immediate problem. You want to have a fast, easy solution for now. And I totally understand it, and I think it's very appropriate, especially if you're have the hope to do the storms and everything. To me, this is the most appropriate solution for now, and I will support it. I don't have a solution for the mullions. Honestly, yeah, I don't have a better solution. So what you're proposing, I guess it's appropriate.
Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. Yeah, I agree with what Commissioner Nasser just said. I was going to say the same thing. She beat me to it. Okay. No, I think you're on the right approach. You have to solve that water problem on your sill. Okay, you know that. Okay, and we're all on board with several different approaches. My background has been doing a lot of physical historic restoration as a carpenter and general contractor. I'm not licensed anymore, but I have done everything that you're talking about doing. I've done it, okay, sometime. I've used copper foil and copper for hitters and for sills. I don't know if that's any cheaper, but it is an option also. But you do need to cover your sills, and you do need to keep that water from backing up, getting underneath. So we all agree on that, And I think you're on the right approach. I support your effort, and I'd like to see you protect that house as well as you can. Thank you.
And, Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. I do appreciate you protecting your home for sure. In the staff report, it talked about actually having the flashing going underneath the storm window. And I'm trying to imagine not doing that. And if you were not to do that, then the flashing one would have to turn up and be caulked right at the underside of the window, I would guess, which is not a good detail. And so if the intent is to actually run the new flashing underneath the existing storm windows, you wouldn't want to tear the old storm windows off or even the bottom storm in order to run that flashing behind there. And I think you're going to probably have to flash back to your existing wood window because there's no guarantee at all that water won't get past the storm window and get into that cavity between your window and your storm window. So to flash back to that window suggests you almost have to do something with that storm unless you're just going to take it off and hope that it didn't get damaged to put it back. So at least in my logic, trying to think through that, you almost have to flash it back to the window, in my humble opinion. And the drip edge makes a lot of sense. The thing that I can't really tell from the photographs is whether you'd have an opportunity, you have enough height in that base, the base rail of the storm window to actually put on top of the flashing on the outside of the storm window. I think you mentioned it having like a product that could sit, you know, if it was a 1/4 inch wood or even 3/4, do you have enough height to sort of hide the metal flashing by putting a piece of wood from the front of the storm window out to the edge of the drip edge that wouldn't act as flashing per se, but it would certainly from a historical standpoint would give the house a look very similar to the original sill before it was cut off. Obviously, it was at a lower level, but you might want to think about that as well. So those are my thoughts.
So 2 things. One, the weep holes in the structure of the storm window is one of the things that needs to be considered. And so putting the flashing, quote unquote, under really doesn't stop me from needing the weep holes in the structure. So what I have to do is I have to make sure that whoever does this understands how storm windows drain. And then what I need is for that drainage to occur without joint from the storm window weep hole down across whatever I use for sill and out over the butt edge of the aluminum. So my problem is the way they did the aluminum, there's really no room for a sill per se at the current stage of things. So I'm going to look at what I can and cannot do. My thought is that, and if you looked at the picture of the basement, those have sills that go out quite a ways. I might be able to, as I said, in the future, pull off all the siding, you know, resurrect sills, which non-trivial, but there's 1 or 2 places where the sills are bad enough that I may have to do that anyway. But the idea here is to avoid further damage to the windows in the structure and do it in concert with storms and in concerts with the existing aluminum siding, because I don't want to fight the storm windows right now, and I think they do protect the double hung sashes, and I don't want to fight the aluminum siding because I have other problems that I need to work first. Thank you.
Anyone else? Then I will speak last. Commissioner Kaplan? No? Yep. So I think in general, you're hearing support for your idea. I think we're acceptable to aluminum flashing material. Precisely how you execute that will be kind of in your hands to assure that the water doesn't get down between the cavity. I definitely think a drip edge, how you form your, is definitely a must. And if you can, if I heard you correctly, you're going to remove the storm windows to maybe
Let me phrase it as I'm going to go to somebody who
Let
knows.
me just
Yeah.
finish. You don't need to explain, let me finish. But if you do take the storm window off and you can turn the flashing up even a half inch and apply the window back over it, that would certainly be a better condition. As for the mullion, caulk the heck out of it with really good caulk. You could maybe wrap a small band of PVC half-inch around it and caulk to give it, kind of build up the joint, but that's probably going to be your one weak area. The only thing I'll throw out there is you could take quarter-inch thick piece of PVC, white PVC, and you could literally cut it to the depth of the sill with some overhang for your drip edge, and you could butt it tight to the mullion, you could butt it tight to the storm window, and then again, do a good bead of caulk there, and that'll get you 5-6 years at least before the caulk starts breaking down and you have to do it all over again. But either way, I think you're hearing that we're supporting the idea of preserving your house by not letting the water down there until you can replace the aluminum siding. So unless you have any further questions, thank you for coming in. All right. Next preliminary is 3B at 707 New York Avenue, Tacoma Park. And do we have a report?
Yes, we do. Bear with me one moment while I switch over. All right. This is Laura DiPasquale with the staff. This is a preliminary consultation for 707 New York Avenue, Tacoma Park. The property is listed as a non-contributing resource in the Tacoma Park Historic District and includes a one-story circa 1920s colonial revival house and detached garage. The property is located in the northwestern part of the district along the district boundary and is adjacent to and behind outstanding resources at 703 New York Avenue and 704 Philadelphia Avenue, respectively. The proposal is subject to review under the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. A few views of the property. This one's showing the existing house and parcel. The district boundary runs along this fence line here, so the property to the left is outside of the district boundary. And then we have the outstanding resource at 703 New York Avenue here to the right. Another view of the property and the existing curb cut and the kind of full width of the property here. And this view shows the existing garage at the rear that's also proposed for demolition, and the two trees here at the foreground are proposed for removal. And here's a view looking from the property at 703 New York Avenue. So this proposal includes subdivision of the existing lot, seen here on the right, to include a smaller front lot and a larger rear flag lot, demolition of the existing house and garage, removal of 3 mature trees, and construction of 2 single-family houses accessed by a shared 20-foot wide driveway with a new curb cut. While the design of the new houses themselves is not part of this preliminary consultation review, the general massing that the applicants have shown includes a front house with a 40 by 40 footprint and a rear house with a 55.5 by 27 foot footprint. Both houses are identified as having 35-foot max heights. Here's some bird's eye view renderings that the applicants have submitted, showing the proposed massing of the front and rear houses and the adjacent parcels. Staff finds that the demolition of the existing non-contributing house and garage should be permitted under the guidelines in Chapter 24A8D, which states that the Commission shall be lenient in its judgment of plans for structures of little historical or design significance and for plans involving new construction, unless such plans would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources or would impair the character of the historic district. Per the guidelines, subdivision and subsequent new construction in Tacoma Park should be sensitive to the historic development patterns, existing patterns of building coverage and landscaping, sense of open space, presence of large mature trees, and ample front and rear yards. Staff finds that the proposed flag lot subdivision and construction of 2 new houses with associated paving and tree removal run counter to these guidelines, to Chapter 24A8D, and to Standards 2, 9, and 10. Staff finds that the creation of a second lot in the rear yard of the existing house violates the historic building patterns of the district, as it eliminates the possibility of large rear yards for both properties and disrupts the sense of open space in the district. As seen in this figure ground rendering submitted by the applicant, the proposed rear building footprint is out of scale with the rear outbuildings found throughout the district and would be highly visible from the public right-of-way. At the proposed 2.5 to 3 stories in height, or 35-foot height max, the rear building would be out of scale with the height of outbuildings in the district, which tend to be limited to 1.5 stories in height. Staff further finds that the use of a 20-foot wide driveway is likewise incongruous with the character of the district. Where driveways do exist in the district, they're typically narrower, around 10 feet in width. So staff does support the demolition of the existing buildings and finds that the general setback and square footage of the proposed front house is appropriate, as would be a house with a deeper footprint. Provided mature trees are protected, the driveway is reduced to a maximum of around 10 feet in width, and the ultimate design of the house is compatible with the district. Staff would also support the demolition of the existing garage and construction of an accessory dwelling unit, smaller than the proposed rear new construction house, and of a scale in keeping with historic outbuildings in the district. Staff finds that the subject property is located immediately next door to and behind outstanding resources, and that the massing of the proposed rear house would seriously impair the character of the surrounding historic resources and district overall. Part of that also has to do with the removal of 3 mature trees, which staff finds incompatible with the guidelines. Staff notes that 2 large canopy trees were found to be dead or hazardous in fall 2025 and have already been removed from the property, and that the additional removal of would result in significant loss of tree canopy in the district. So as submitted, staff finds that the proposal does not meet any of the criteria for issuance under Chapter 24A8B. Counter to B1, staff finds that the proposal will substantially alter the exterior features of the historic site, resulting in an aberrant lot configuration, removal of large mature trees, and significant paving for the proposed 20-foot wide driveway. Counter to B2, staff finds that the construction of 2 houses back to front on the existing parcel, the removal of mature trees, and extensive paving required for a 20-foot wide driveway are not compatible with the historic district. And counter to B3, staff finds that the proposal would not enhance or aid in the protection, preservation, or public or private utilization of the resource within the district in a manner that is compatible with the historic, archaeological, architectural, or cultural value of the historic site or district in which the resource is located. Counter to 24A8B4, staff finds that the proposal is not necessary in order that an unsafe condition or health hazard be remedied. To B5, that the applicants have not demonstrated that the proposal is necessary in order that the owner not be deprived of reasonable use of the property or suffer undue hardship. Counter to B6, staff finds that in balancing the interests of the public in preserving the resource located within the historic district, the general public welfare is not better served by granting the permit. And staff notes that while the proposal may meet zoning requirements, additional reviews, including those conducted by the City of Tacoma Park, fire and rescue, stormwater management, forest conservation, would all be required prior to issuance of the building permit. So for this preliminary consultation review, staff seeks HPC feedback on the appropriateness of subdividing the current lot, the appropriateness of the shape and size of the proposed lots, the appropriateness of the location, scale, and general massing of the proposed buildings, the appropriateness of the proposed curb cut and shared driveway, the appropriateness of the removal of 3 large mature trees, and any other comments you might have. If the HPC is supportive of the proposed subdivision and new construction concept, staff recommends additional materials be submitted for a second preliminary consultation, including massing diagrams that include the existing and proposed topography and are shown from street level, setback measurements from the street and from the neighboring buildings in the district, and an updated tree survey identifying all trees greater than 6 inches DBH on the property that will be impacted by the proposed construction. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Burdett.
Has zoning approved this subdivision yet?
Not yet. So this came in originally as a concept plan, and since it needed historic review first before going to planning board, they're coming to you all for your feedback first.
Okay, and staff's opinion on the subdivision is based on historic preservation staff qualifications and not on what zoning will be saying about this, correct?
Correct. I did touch base with one of the zoning planners who had indicated that he believes that it more or less could meet zoning requirements, but there are still other requirements to be met.
And again, the neighbors, do they know anything about this yet?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, and that includes Montgomery College? Doesn't know about this yet?
We
Okay.
have not, we haven't sent notice.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Prather.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Prather. I had a question about, I see the arrows pointing, are those the trees? And was there a specialist to identify the trees, the health of the trees, and the impact?
The application does include a tree survey. I'm not sure who conducted that tree survey, but the applicants might be able to speak to that. It does, in the chart for that list, does indicate that the trees are in good condition.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani.
Question for the staff. The outstanding resource adjacent on New York Avenue, do we have a sense of the height of that, that building? I know it's quite grand and it's sort of, its size and scale and everything, but it'd be helpful to contextualize, I think, perhaps the massing that is proposed, if we know its height.
I don't off the bat, but that's something we could certainly look into for a future review.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no more questions for staff, I invite the applicants to come forward. I have Mark Hishma and Ben Norkin. Come on, if you are the applicant, Mark and Ben, please come up. Have a seat and push the button until you see the green light, and then introduce yourself and your relationship to the project for the record.
Good evening. I'm Ben Norkin. I'm an architect and assisting the owner with the project at this point.
Hello, my name is Mark Hishma. I'm the owner of the property.
Mike Norton, Norton Land Design, landscape architect, licensed tree expert, certified arborist, and site planning specialist.
Thank you. You'll have 7 minutes to make a presentation, or we can ask questions.
Well, I'll keep the presentation short. Just to touch on what staff just, or in the outgoing chair's question, is that we have not really done more work than what you see here. We haven't filed any applications. We haven't done any design. We haven't, this is a long process, and we came here first to let you guys see it or ask your, get your opinion on it before we do this. So nothing has been applied for, nothing's been approved, nothing's been done beyond what you see in the staff report and what's been provided to staff to date.
I can speak a little bit more to that. We were brought in following the applicant filed a concept plan with Montgomery Planning just to seek feedback from zoning. And zoning said to come down to HPC and talk to them as well. Therefore, no one has been notified. It's very simple, just diagrammatic. The owner just looking at simply lot square footage and what they have and some different options that they have. So we thought we'd come down and more than happy to answer some of the questions, some of the staff's concerns as well.
Very good. I assume you're ready for questions. Who would like to, Commissioner Doman?
It's Commissioner Doman. Your concept right now is two houses, one up close to the road and one set back. I'm assuming that there's financial reasons for breaking this out and have two. Have you considered just one home on this property instead of trying to put two on there? Could you not just have one nice house on this property?
Yeah, definitely. That's a second option to do one home.
Commissioner Burdett?
Commissioner Burdett, when you were doing, I mean, it's, I understand the purpose. The problem is that it's not in compliance with the way the historic houses set on lots in this district. Usually you have the big house up front and a smaller outbuilding garage, or now it would be an ADU back in the back. And here you have two equal-sized houses, and the back one actually looks a little larger from the diagrams. Did you consider doing a duplex structure? And I don't mean row house look. I mean, there are some very nice examples through Tacoma Park and in DC of houses that are duplexes, but they look like a single-family home. And you have an entrance on the face of the house and an entrance on the side of the house, and you would never know that they are two independent units. And that might be a more appropriate way to handle this if you really do want two houses. Another way would be to do an kind of an English cottage court situation where you have the front house and an L off the back, and the driveway actually drives through or under the front house. So it has a more of a cottagey enclosed courtyardy feel in the back as opposed to a 20-foot wide driveway. Because that's part of your problem is at 20 feet, that's kind of an abnormally large driveway. So those are my concerns. Is I don't think the two plans you have are compliant, but you haven't been to zoning yet to check this out. And even if they are compliant, they're going to really, this is a touchy neighborhood. The neighbors around you are really, it's Montgomery College is the problem, because they've always been fighting Montgomery College expansion, but they view any expansion as kind of gets the hair on the back of their necks up. So be warned about that. I know those people. I happen to live very close by. And when I worked downtown, I walked past this house going to the Metro, and I saw the different tenants over the years and how long they would or would not stay, and when there would be problems with the students at Montgomery College, assuming that they could go sit on the porch or go hang out in the yard. And it has been a problem since as long as I've been there, which is 25 years. So it's a cute little cottage, but unfortunately, it's a cute little cottage. It's not, it's an ADU almost, is how small this thing is. But you're so early in this, I think you need to go back and think a couple of more steps about this. I kind of gave my opinion early, I'm sorry.
I can speak
We'll
to
allow it.
I can speak to a couple of those things if you like.
Sure.
I don't think he can really go back too much further. It's just two squares on on a drawing right now. I can speak to the driveway, though. So we're pretty well versed in zoning and codes in Montgomery County, and I'm sure as you are, one of the biggest issues in Montgomery County is this thing called the fire code. And we all know the fire marshal's rules and how they work and how they conflict with everything. The problem is when you have a shared use driveway, a shared use driveway has to be 20 feet wide to the point at which it is no longer shared. That's really the issue that comes up with subdivision. So if you take, if you take the driveway, and so that's what the fire marshal would want from this. If you take it otherwise, DOT frowns on multiple driveway entrances, so you kind of look at two different things. They don't want two 10-foot driveways, and they won't allow one with a shared. So that's how, kind of where, and that's where we've been kind of bringing the owner up to speed on some of those things.
And
as
that's your
well.
problem, because then then the college, Tacoma does not allow parking along that street at all. So
Does it have to be shared? We just do two separate driveways?
your residents would have no other place to park around there at all. I mean, they'd have to park.
There is a driveway for the existing house
But-
on the left.
Oh, on the left. Well, but that's a different curb cut. That's their problem. They don't want you to have two curb cuts.
DOT is typically frowns upon multiple curb cuts for a subdivision.
Yeah, you'd have to
So,
ask for an exemption or a variance for that
You
one.
would just, probably wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
What paving material options do we have? Can we do permeable and meet the fire code?
Another fire code issue.
I mean,
In
many-
theory, we should be able to do permeable. The problem that comes up with this, and there is the grass pave and there's gravel pave and things like that, and we've been talking to the fire marshal about those things. The issue comes up with clearing and in the winter time when the driveways are not safe access is what the problem comes up. So they want something that can be that can be cleared and that they have safe access. So.
Well, are they going to come out and clear it?
What's that?
Does the fire department come out and clear it?
No.
Could you do gravel?
In
A
some cases.
hard-packed gravel?
Yeah, in some cases, we've been able to do gravel. We have a project in Garrett Park right now where we've done gravel. Again, it's a reinforced geoweb that we put underneath of it that kind of gives us some options, kind of similar to the driveway on the right, the historic house, I guess is what you're referring to with the 10-foot driveway.
Right.
Yeah, there may be, but it'd still be 20 feet wide.
True, but.
I don't think we could do it, although likewise, I don't think you could run like the grass down the middle and have two lanes, two drives, things like that. I just don't think we'd be able to get past. That life safety thing gets us sometimes with fire code.
Mr. Chair, and to the applicants as well, we're here talking about the configurations of the lots. And any life safety and other issues that you have are very far down the line to sort of work out later. The question before the HPC is about the appropriate configurations of the lots. Just to let the commissioners know as well, even when this goes through subdivision, for example, even the planning board isn't looking at the houses. You guys are going to get much more into it than even planning board does as part of an administrative or as part of an administrative subdivision or a subdivision that they, have to hold a hearing on. So just to pull back a little bit, even from the life safety issues, that's not necessarily the point of the question that we're here to get feedback on tonight.
One of
But-
them was the driveway.
Right, but we're talking about the lot configuration. And again, you have a lot of options under the R60 zoning as well that we did not go into that or prepare, the zoning table for you about, what is the minimum lot frontage in R60. There are a lot of options that are not encumbered by any life safety issues that have yet to be explored. So just want to put that out there too.
Great. Thank you for redirecting us. Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Kaplan.
Mr. Kaplan, I actually have a question for staff. If this came back as a HOP, would it be, how many cases would it actually be? Would it be separate cases for the demolition, the subdivision, and the construction, or would we be looking at everything at once?
We would recommend that it be one hop for the whole thing, for the subdivision and for the houses. So for example, the Commissioner Kaplan, I don't believe that you were here, but for the other commissioners, the case at 2500 Holman Avenue, which was the outstanding resource that we just saw that had individual lots associated with it, and the developer was building multiple houses on spec. And so we took that through as one HOP application for the construction of 2 single-family houses on those lots, and we asked for full building permit sets and all the specification details for those 2 houses. Now, if the applicant really wanted to, say if they weren't ready to come through with fully developed building permits on one of the lots, say the one in the back, you could choose to just hear the subdivision and the one in the front, if that's the one they were ready to develop, and then hear the one in the back separately. But typically, we would recommend that it all come in together as under one permit.
Right, so that way you know what the end result's going to be when you're considering the subdivision and the demolition.
Exactly. That way, you have the full scope to be able to assess the impacts to the historic district.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for the applicant at this time, we will begin our deliberations and discussion. Do we have anybody who would like to kick off? Commissioner Doman.
Could staff put the issues screen up for us? What you're asking for us, yeah. I guess I agree with staff's recommendations. I guess that's basically it, that the location of two houses on this property does not, it would be challenging, and I'm not sure if I understand this is only very preliminary, okay, very preliminary. Again, the rear house seems to be too large, too massive compared to what I would expect to see in the historic district. So I think staff has covered my concerns in their statements. So I guess basically I agree with staff. I'm worried about the trees, but I think that can be handled. The curb cut, that is an issue, not necessarily for us just yet. But I'm just looking at the size of what's being proposed, and it just doesn't seem to fit in this particular location. So, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Burdett.
I pretty much talked earlier, but I think you're going down the wrong path here. You're creating, by wanting to subdivide these lots, you're creating problems for yourself. And I think you really do need to look at a duplex format for this, because it will allow you to handle, you won't have a shared use driveway. You will have a driveway that leads to two garages or two parking up front. There are duplexes in Tacoma Park, and I can't remember the streets they're on. There are some really interesting ones on 16th Street, north of Piney Branch on the eastern side. So as you're going up, they'd be on the right-hand side, driving northward on 16th Street. You will have a hard time spotting them. They're that good. They look like a single-family home. And I think that is really what you need to be looking at. And something, you're going to have to design something that's in context with this, the Tacoma Park and in this particular branch of the neighborhood. I'm trying to think if over on the other side of Philadelphia where the duplexes are, there are a few, and I can't think of where they are right now. But I do know there are some in Tacoma, maybe on Flower Avenue. I'm not sure. But take a look at that and see how much of your problems go away. Because right now the county's looking at, more housing on lots, but at the same time, there's no sense creating excess problems for yourself when people will go ahead and buy a duplex just as fast if they have a backyard. That's good. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Dominiani.
This is Commissioner Damiani. A couple comments about maybe like the placement within the lots as well. Right now, the curb cut is sort of furthest from that outstanding resource next door, and the driveway goes up the left side of the house. And something to consider, I think we're always looking as it comes time to like evaluate the proposed new construction that we see, is how those new buildings might interact with like the outstanding buildings nearby. So it's something to think about. The spacing, how far you are within the lot from that outstanding resource, where the driveway placement is, what the garage looks like, and ultimately how we can preserve some canopy too. So if there's a way to configure this that's going to save some of these very large, kind of nice trees. I understand there were a couple that may have had issues, but I would welcome or I'd invite you guys, I think, to consider some of those and how this is going to fit in with the context very well. I think the other commissioners have great points about how this can still maybe be appropriate with two separate units. They're able to make money, there's a business case there, but consider it fitting in with the context too. It's my advice for, as you develop this further. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other commissioners, I will comment last here. Well, Commissioner Galway, sorry.
Commissioner Galway, you know, it is a cute little cottage that's there, but it's a non-contributing resource. I don't think there won't be any discussion about, oh, you can't take it down, or the garage. So that's the easy part. The fact that it's in a historic district does make this much more difficult as it relates to the new construction. You know, we were asked to sort of think about the appropriateness of subdividing a lot. If you weren't going to build anything on the lots, I don't think I'd care whether you subdivide it. You could do it all day long, and the size and the shape wouldn't be a matter. So it's really not the subdivision as much as it is what are you doing once you subdivide it. And I think the home at the back is just entirely too large. It is not an accessory structure to a historic or to it's just too big, you know. And so I think that's, if it looked like a garage, smelled like a garage, you know, that would be one thing, but it's going to look like a home that's sitting behind another home. And I think it was well said, once the cottage comes down and you build what you're going to build, now we're comparing that or evaluating your design as it relates to the adjacent building. And at that point, it becomes much more difficult for us to even comprehend allowing you or supporting you in your decision. So I think there's been a lot of conversation about, is there another way to get the duplex? I'm not a fan of the 20-foot driveway. Maybe there's a possibility of relocating it. That's something you might want to look at, but I think that's also a hindrance in terms of my ability to be able to approve this ultimately. So thank you very much. Oh, and in terms of the trees, you know, I think having a report on the ones that are being taken down, if they are in good shape, I think ultimately one of the things that we often do is then recommend that they be replaced elsewhere on the property so that we can maintain a canopy that's consistent with the neighborhood. So just keep that in mind as well as you guys go forward. Thank you.
If there are no more comments, I will wrap this up. So you've heard a number of thoughts ranging from the potential for duplex, potential for a larger single-family home versus two homes. And I think you might consider a house with a smaller ADU-type structure in the back. I appreciate the level of drawings that you provided, particularly the figure ground drawings really do help, for me, understand the size of the homes relative to the adjacent neighboring homes. And I do think the house in the rear, even from, I know your three-dimensional drawings are conceptual, but that rear house will feel like a giant relative to the smaller structures of the adjacent neighbors. So those are our feedback. Staff, you can work with staff for your next preliminary, and we look forward to seeing you again. Okay. Let's see. We don't have any minutes this time.
There was one set of minutes that was uploaded for the December 17th meeting. They went up in the board book yesterday, though, so I'm not sure if anybody's.
There it is. Okay.
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I actually read those minutes, and they looked appropriate to me, so I would move that we approve the December 17th minutes as shown.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Burdett. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Thank you, Commissioner Dominiani, for following up. Any commission items? If there are no commission items, staff items?
Two staff items, Mr. Chair, confirming that we are holding our HPC retreat next Wednesday. It is starting at 6 p.m. I sent out an updated calendar invite for everybody. Please convene here in the auditorium, and then we will proceed to dinner. Note the calendar invite has it starting at 5 p.m., but that's just us setting up the room. Dinner is at 6. And then also noting that January 20th is the public hearing at the County Council for the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan. And Mr. Chair, I will work with you on preparing the HPC's written testimony for that, and I can also work with directing you to the council website if you would like to appear in person to give the testimony of the commission.
Sure, I would like to do that, appear in person, and see what it's all about.
Great.
This is Commissioner Burdett. I do have a question about personally testifying, since I term out the next day. And would I be allowed, I mean, are there any conflicts with me testifying on the 20th for myself, not as a commissioner of the HPC?
There's no issues with that at all. Whether or not you are terming out, commissioners are not precluded from testifying on any matters on their own behalf, separate, from your duties as a commissioner.
Thank you.
No problem.
Great. If there's no other issues, then the meeting is adjourned.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.